In this video, I'm going to show you how we organize and edit our photo shoots as quickly and efficiently as possible. Before I start, I just want to say that these are our methods and it's what works for us. You don't have to do things the way that we do, but hopefully you'll find some tips throughout this video that you can integrate into your own system. And if you're wondering why this set looks a little bit different, it's because I'm filming on the set that I use for my new channel, which is all about making money online, and you can check it out in the description below. And thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. So the first step is getting the files off our memory cards and onto a hard drive. We use external solid state drives for our shoots since we don't want to fill up our internal drive with a bunch of raw photos. The SSDs are super fast to help editing go as quickly as possible. We label our shoots with the year followed by a period, then the month and the day, followed by the shoot name. Inside this folder, I'll create a few folders. The first one is the raw folder where all the photos will initially get copied to. Then I'll create a second folder. This is where we'll move all the photos that we want to bring into Lightroom. Now next, here's where we differ from a lot of other photographers. We create a separate Lightroom catalog for every single shoot. Even though Lightroom has great organizational tools, it can get a little sluggish when too many photos are in a catalog. I think it's gotten better over the years, but this is just our system and it works for us. Also, if a catalog gets corrupted, we only lose the edits for one shoot instead of every single shoot. So I create a folder for the Lightroom catalog to live in as well. And then one more folder for our exports. Now copy your raw photos from your memory card to the raw photos folder we just created. Since Lightroom is not known for its speed, we like to cull our photos in a third-party application. Culling is essentially just picking out the selects that you want to edit. We used to use Photo Mechanic, which is great, but it's also kind of expensive. And then my cousin actually developed a photo culling app that uses AI called Optics, which is more affordable, and it works just as well, if not better than Photo Mechanic. If it's a small shoot with not a lot of photos, you can import everything into Lightroom and cull in there if you'd like, but otherwise using an application like the ones I mentioned will save you a lot of time. Just quickly go through marking every photo that you want to bring into Lightroom and edit. Then you can move all of your selects to the selects folder on your hard drive. Okay, next we can open Lightroom and create a new catalog. Just save it to the catalog folder we created earlier. And then we just import all of the selects into Lightroom. Sometimes we build one-to-one previews, which takes a little longer, but once it's done, it allows you to see your photos in the highest quality without having to build a preview one at a time as you edit. If you're in a hurry, just set it to minimal or embedded in Sidecar. That's about all we need to do here, so we can click import. Once it's done importing and building any previews, we can start editing. If you want to divvy up your shoot into collections, now is also a good time to do so. So if you have an indoor studio section of the shoot, you can drop that into one collection and keep your outdoor shots in another collection. Or if you used two different cameras and want to edit them separately, you can open your library filter by selecting metadata, choosing the camera, and then selecting all of those photos and drop them into a new collection. We don't use collections a whole lot, but it can be super helpful for staying organized with larger shoots. While in library mode, you can quickly make basic adjustments to your photos pretty quickly. Moving between photos is also fast, so you can start editing here, but we rarely do. Next, I'm going to head into the develop module where we spend most of our time. To be honest, I usually slap on our MS Portrait preset and apply it to all of our photos, but that's not super helpful if you edit differently, so let's dig in a little bit more, starting from scratch. This will depend on your camera and lens, but we usually start by heading down to the lens corrections panel and enable profile corrections. This removes that natural vignetting from our lens and brightens things up. If you like the vignetting, you can just drag the vignetting slider back to the left. All right, let's head back up top. The next thing we always adjust is white balance and exposure. When we shoot, we leave our camera on auto white balance since it's just really easy to adjust here in Lightroom. If needed, now is also a good time to adjust the crop and straighten out the photo if you need. Now let's jump down to calibration. We cover this in most of our Lightroom videos because it is super powerful for creating unique looks, and the way the calibration works is it will affect every single pixel in our photo. The shadow slider is pretty self-explanatory. Greener shadows when you drag it to the left and more magenta to the right. I usually bring it a little toward green. With the red, green, and blue primary sliders, adjusting the hue will have a huge impact. Let's check it out. Of course, then you can combine them, adjust the saturation levels, and get some really unique looks. You can spend a long time playing around with calibration levels until you get it somewhere you like, and if you really aren't sure what's best, it's probably a good idea just to keep the adjustments pretty subtle. Once you're done, you may want to make some additional white balance adjustments just to even things out, so feel free. Here in this photo, most of the highlights are from the neon sign, so I can turn up the highlight slider to get a more dreamy glow from the sign, or just bring it down to get more detail and saturation from the sign. Just keep in mind how your highlights will also affect other parts of your photo, so like here, it's also affecting the model's face. Likewise, if you want to bring more detail into your shadows, lift the shadow slider as needed. Usually we don't mess with the whites and black sliders too much. In this photo, I may lower the whites just a little to smooth out some of those bright hits on our model. Lowering the blacks can help add some contrast, but I'll hold off on that for now. Dehaze usually looks good in the 5 to 15 range on portraits like this. It adds a little contrast, saturation, and structure to the image. All right, let's move on down to the tone curve. We have an entire video dedicated to the tone curve, so if anything I do here confuses you, I'll link it in the description below and you can check that out. I'm in point mode, and I usually start by adding some contrast by pulling down the shadows. It may take you a while to get used to the tone curve, but with a little time, you'll get the hang of it, no problem. I just like to smooth out the brighter parts of the image too. You can also head into parametric mode and use sliders to make similar adjustments. Now these adjustments will work alongside the point curve adjustments, so sometimes I like to use both for finessing the contrast. So next we have the hue, saturation, and luminance section. Once again, we made an entire video dedicated to this panel, so check it out in the description if you want to learn more about it. I often use this target adjustment circle and click and drag up or down on any part of the photo that I want to adjust. So if the skin tone looks a little off, you can grab the hue target adjustment circle and click on your subject's face and drag up or down to adjust all of the related hues. Next, we have the color grading section, which is new in Lightroom 10. So if you don't have this section, you just need to update Lightroom. But if you aren't on Adobe's cloud subscription, you can get by just fine with the split toning section. The color grading section is super powerful, and it's pretty similar to color grading tools you use with video. So you have your sections for shadows, midtones, highlights, and global. Let's take a look at shadows. You can see in this photo, our shadows have a magenta hue to them. If you want the shadows to look more neutral, we can look at the color wheel and find the opposite of magenta. We can start dragging the circle toward green and keep an eye on the shadows to see its effect. You can also use the hue and saturation sliders instead of dragging the circle for more precise adjustments. The luminance slider will then determine how bright or dark that color is. So the same concepts apply to the midtones and highlights. To see what may look good, turn the saturation slider up and then slide the hue around. When you find a hue that works well with your photo, just turn that saturation down to something more subtle. Global color is my favorite section here. Just drag the hue and saturation around the circle and see what you like. And then play with the luminance to see if any adjustments improve your photo. So the blending and balance sliders are global, and they determine how all three sections are, well, balanced and blended. Bringing the balance to the left will give the shadows adjustment a greater influence on the image, and bringing the sliders to the right will give the highlights adjustment a greater influence. Then we can flip off the color grading panel to see it before and after. This can help give your eyes a bit of a reset too, so maybe you notice that the shadows are too green or whatever, and then you can make any appropriate adjustments. Finally, down in the effects panel, we usually like to add a little grain, which is totally just personal preference. So from here, you can apply these settings to the rest of your photos in a few different ways, but the easiest is probably synchronizing. With the photo selected, you can shift click the rest of the photos you want to edit and then click sync. If you made photo-specific edits like crop or spot removals, uncheck those, but otherwise go ahead and click synchronize. Rachel, I'm so happy to be standing here with you today, surrounded by all of our friends.
Daniel, we've been together for 8 years, through 7 different apartments and 4 different websites, all of which were hosted by Squarespace's easy-to-use all-in-one platform.
You're so beautiful, inside and out, just like Squarespace's designer templates.
You've always been there for me, day and night. just like Squarespace's award-winning 24/7 customer support.
I'm so glad I made my next move with Squarespace, and you. I love you both so much. So once we have this base edit applied, we will just go through all the photos, double checking the crop and straightness along with exposure and white balance, as they will fluctuate throughout a shoot. You may find that how you edited the first photo just doesn't look good on other photos in your set, so you may have to make more individualized edits. To be honest, that's why we spend a long time developing presets that don't include any extreme adjustments, so they work well on just about any scenario. So every single photo in the shoot actually has the same exact preset on it, MS Portrait, with just exposure, white balance, and crop adjustments. This makes our editing workflow so much faster and it keeps our work looking consistent. So if you want to check out our presets, they will be linked in the description below. So once we're done editing, we usually flag every photo that we want to export. Just hit P on the keyboard to flag the photo, and then you can filter by flagged photos only, then select all, and then go to File, Export. Navigate to the export folder we made at the beginning to have your photos saved there. For naming, I like to use custom name, original file number. Then I make the custom text the name of the shoot. Under file settings, we usually go with JPEG and leave it at 100. For image sizing, this all depends on what you're doing with your photos. Since most of our photos end up in 4K videos, we usually set the long edge to 3840 pixels. For metadata, we just include the copyright only, and then we are good to export. If you are low on hard drive space and you're just shooting personal projects, you can delete your raw files of unused photos if you want. We don't delete anything and just keep everything, because back when we were shooting weddings, we wouldn't want to delete anything a client may want after the fact, so we just keep it all. We do recommend though that you back up your entire project folder to another drive or cloud storage, or both. We use Backblaze to automatically sync everything to the cloud. It's like $5 a month or something, so it's pretty affordable. If you have any other questions about our Lightroom workflow, leave us a comment below and let us know. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. And if there's something that you want to see us do in more depth, let us know and we'll try to make a video for you. Do us a favor and hit the thumbs up button on this video, subscribe, ring that little bell, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye. I got a cut.